You have to really put yourself in the desperate frame of mind of someone who pays $120 and then sits there and listens to a guided meditation from Sam Harris twice a day, every day, with their eyes closed and their legs crossed. What are Sam Harris's credentials in Buddhism? How did Sam Harris become a guru who's qualified to lead group meditation or give you guided meditation? What are Sam Harris's motivations? What is the enlightenment he's pointing you the way to? What are the results you're supposed to expect from this method? There are so many obvious, outrageous questions that these people are not asking because they're desperate for help. They're desperate for hope. They're desperate for reassurance. They yearn for the veneer of something sacred and profound to come into their lives.
And another thing that I'm now doing in the course, I've begun interviewing other meditation teachers and trying to get to the bottom of what they teach and why they teach it. These will be deep dives into the minutiae of consciousness and what can be gleaned about it from first-person methods, whether they be contemplative or psychedelic or philosophical or otherwise.
From the get-go, you see that most of the app's features are not available if you don't subscribe to a paid monthly subscription. I greatly disagree with monetizing meditation like this. It should really be more of a symbolic donation type of thing. Monetizing techniques that have been around for thousands of years seems like something that Mr. Harris would be against. Nevertheless, the app is very well and beautifully designed. Way too expensive, this reviewer comments. I might consider it for a couple of pounds a month or buy it outright for about £30, which would still be very generous compared with most digital media. At the current price, it feels like people are being taken advantage of, being sold a glittery, shiny coat of paint over the top of what should be universal and or free knowledge. Well, how much does it cost? Yes, $120 per year. But the first 5 meditations are free. Overpriced, this reviewer says. Stop paying a lot each month and you lose access to anything you've already listened to, which is, for the most part, 10 minutes of recorded silence. The lessons are fine and probably healthy, but the monetization sucks. It's designed for someone that plans to listen to everything in a month or two and never wants to hear it again. What started off as a really good app is now becoming exceedingly repetitive and irritating. I love the content, don't get me wrong, but it's becoming so repetitive that I'm able to predict what he's going to say next because I've heard it several times before. And I can't meditate well to something I've heard before. And if I hear the meta one again, I'm going to scream. And, as always with matters of faith, those who think they truly get it, those who think they truly understand, those who think they're truly happy, they are the most deceived. They are the most pitiable of all. Quote, I have been using this daily, sometimes twice daily for the last 3 weeks. Overall, the experience has been life-changing and the relative importance of Sam Harris's waking up grows all the time. Possibly because, look, guys, if you just replace the word meditation with prayer, if you're talking about people praying multiple times a day, guided prayer with Sam Harris, would you be willing then to recognize that this is a religion? Why is it that when he uses the word meditation to promote and frankly sell what he's doing, everyone's able to rubber stamp this as if it's some kind of legitimate science coming out of the mouth of a supposedly legitimate advocate for atheism and secularism in the Western world?
I'd like you to consider what is real in this moment. That is, what actually exists. So the sense of what is there for us in each moment is bound up with this sense of space. Now, we can get closer to the truth by importing time into our thinking about things. We can think in terms of processes rather than things. We can turn nouns into verbs. You as a person are not really a thing. You're a process. You're a stream of actions and experiences. And your moment-to-moment engagement with the world of things and ideas changes you. You acquire new skills and opinions and desires and concerns. You're not precisely who you were yesterday, and you don't exactly know who you'll be tomorrow. Everything you experience is made of moments in time. But the real significance of time is not what happens on the calendar or on the clock, but in our minds. The true source of profundity is attention. That is the cash value of time. The real pleasure isn't in the object. It's in your mind. It's a matter of what it feels like to give this thing your attention. If, on the other hand, you're recognizing the nature of consciousness, it also doesn't matter where you are or what time it is, because the moment is profound. It's in this middle place where you're distracted with the objects and people and places that matter to you, where it really does seem to matter what you have and where you are. Your attention is bound up with what you're seeing and hearing and thinking in a way that plays upon your preferences. There was a point I'd heard white supremacists make in defense of their own immigration stance, right? Which is to say they want no immigration, they want to live in a white ethno-state. And then when right-thinking people attack this as a symptom of pure evil, the white supremacist might say, well, what about Japan? Right? Japan has the same policy. The Japanese want to keep Japan for the Japanese. They don't want any pink-skinned barbarians living among them, right? Why isn't that a racist policy? Now, that's actually an interesting point. So this is something I brought up with Jared just to talk about Japan because it's interesting, right? So, what about Japan? Why aren't we viewing this policy as shocking evidence of a racist worldview or something, if not racism, something? I'm happy to take that point from Hitler himself if it's interesting. The source simply doesn't matter. Anyway, this seems to be the kind of thing that can make people think that the mask is slipping, right? Or that I'm dog whistling in some way to extremists. And the moment you notice you've been lost in thought, simply observe the thought itself, whether it's images or language. Notice how it disappears, and immediately come back to the sensations of breathing. And as you do this, you can open your awareness to all sensation. There's nothing magical about the breath. Simply let your awareness be the space in which each sensation arises. Take a moment to feel the sensations of your face and head. Perhaps it feels like your awareness is behind your face or in your head, but the feelings of your face and your head are in awareness in this moment. They're appearing in the same place where you're thinking. Your thoughts are not in your head. Your awareness or consciousness is not in your head. In fact, what you're calling the world is appearing in the same space. What you see is appearing in the same space where thoughts and emotions and sensations and sounds are arising in each moment. Close your eyes again and stare into the darkness behind your eyelids. Everything you can notice is simply a perturbation of consciousness. Happy thoughts make us happy. Sad thoughts make us sad. But there's actually an illusion here that we're not seeing. The consciousness that is aware of happiness and the consciousness which is aware of sadness is not actually ever taking the form of those moods. Meditation is simply a means to continually drop back into this state of mere witnessing of everything that arises. Once again, you can open your eyes and notice any apparent change. Does it feel like your experience just got bigger in some way? The place you see with open eyes is the same place where you are thinking and feeling.
It's very easy to debunk the pseudo-spiritual arguments presented by Sam Harris if you just take the time to write them out clearly, bullet point by bullet point, and present them as a flowchart, rather than sitting with your eyes closed in a reverential attitude of passively receiving them while meditating. Very rapidly, the seemingly profound equivocations between slightly exotic sounding words that he presents are reduced to laughable, pointless, pleonastic, dead-ended reasoning, something that can't even be called philosophy. But ultimately, it's pointless for me to sit down and do this with you. I want to end this video by asking you, in all seriousness, if you know someone who's under the influence of Sam Harris, if you know someone who's paying $120 a year to be a member of his cult, reach out to them now and try to talk through with them just what nonsense this is. Maybe take the time to say, hey, if we take this so-called meditation he's presenting here on the true meaning of the self or the true meaning of consciousness, and if we write it out in plain English and make it into a flowchart, can we maybe challenge this assumption you have that this is someone who shared with you profound and esoteric wisdom? Can we maybe challenge the aura of the sacred and the holy that this so-called secular scientist has somehow appropriated to himself? The warning signs with Sam Harris are very clear, and he's done us all a favor by sharing the podium with cult leaders who do not pretend to be secular, who do not pretend to be atheist, who do not pretend to be scientists as he does. If you just look up the names of some of the people he's invited on his show to discuss meditation, or even people who've presented guided meditations through his app, through his podcast and so on, with him, for him, and so on, you will soon find that many of these names are people who have credentials from various schools of Buddhism, Hinduism. For the most part, they're white, Western, English-speaking people whose ideas about Buddhism and Hinduism are 5 steps removed from any primary source. They never actually learned the ancient languages. They never studied the ancient scriptures. But nevertheless, they are overtly dogmatic religious leaders. And if you listen to what they have to say, they are teaching precisely the same doctrine as Sam Harris, very often using precisely the same imagery, the same similes, the same reasoning. I just looked up Locke Kelly, first name Locke, last name Kelly. One of these guys, Sam Harris, shares the stage with, and it sounds like Sam Harris has ripped off some of that guy's act. I mean, it could just be they both read the same self-help books, or they're both working with the same sources, but specific images. Oh, imagine the storm. You are the storm. You think you and your mind are two different things, but really you are the storm. Exactly the same imagery, exactly the same so-called reasoning or guided meditation. Now, this is not the only example. You have to really put yourself in the desperate frame of mind of someone who pays $120 and then sits there and listens to a guided meditation from Sam Harris twice a day, every day, with their eyes closed and their legs crossed. Sam Harris, in the year 2020, is no longer a secular atheist leader. He is the leader of his own dogmatic religious cult meditation movement. What are Sam Harris's credentials in Buddhism? How did Sam Harris become a guru who's qualified to lead group meditation or give you guided meditation? What are Sam Harris's motivations? What is the enlightenment he's pointing you the way to? What are the results you're supposed to expect from this method? There are so many obvious, outrageous questions that these people are not asking because they're desperate for help. They're desperate for hope. They're desperate for reassurance. They yearn for the veneer of something sacred and profound to come into their lives. Think for a moment about the beginnings of Scientology. There was a time when people thought Scientology and Dianetics legitimately had something to do with science and psychology. Remember that? The beginnings of the cult of Sam Harris, likewise, have emerged out of this guy seemingly having a legitimate university diploma in the science of the mind, and him having seemingly legitimate peer-reviewed publications and books with impressive sounding titles. When you look into those actual publications, if you read his articles or his books, it all falls apart under inspection pretty quickly. But nevertheless, we have a situation here very much like the transition Scientology and Dianetics made from pseudoscience to outright cult. If you don't know what the harm is in people becoming true believers in the doctrine of Sam Harris, if you don't know what the danger is, take a look back at the first few years of the history of Scientology and ask yourself, the people who got involved at that stage, did they have any idea where this was going to go in the next 5 years? And now let's think about our own lifetimes with Sam Harris. When you think back 5 years ago and 10 years ago, did you have any idea Sam Harris was going to take it this far? Did you have any idea he was going to be selling this app with guided meditation and presenting himself ostensibly and actually as a spiritual guru in this way? And then where do you think he's going to go next? What do you think happens in the next 5 years? And I'm not asking how that might be bad or harmful for Sam Harris. I'm asking how that might be dangerous, destructive for people who are desperate enough and needy enough to reach out for and cling to the kind of peculiar guidance this man is now offering.